Going back to the last class, one of the programs you had to write for the last class was the password program. Did everybody have success or find a solution that works and you're okay with what was going on in the password program?
Yes.
Yes. The other one we did in the last class was the Pig Latin program. As easy as that sounded, we didn't get as many solutions, did we? And as much as I'd like to have time now to say, okay, let's go back into some groups and talk about it and see what we can come up with, that ended up being a little bit harder than we thought. How did you figure out the Pig Latin program for those of you that did? So if I was to take a piece of scratch paper and I went back to here I am, how is that to be solved? Like, I know you all started typing because you're all badasses and you can start typing this right away. I, on the other hand, can't. So it's almost like I had to say, take the H. If there's another letter, copy the letter. If there's another letter, copy the letter. If there's another letter, copy the letter. If there's not another letter, add the H, put A and Y in my outstring, and a space. Move on to the next one. Get the I. Copy the next letter. If there isn't one, then I have some sort of flag was set because it was a single letter. Then I needed the I and the AY, and then a space. Copy the next letter. If there's a letter, copy it. If there's a space, I stop. I put the first letter and an AY. Okay, so I was getting the first letter, and putting it temporarily somewhere, store it, right? So if this was my instra, this is my outstra, I'm going to be adding stuff to outstra. The very first thing is to find out if the next one is a space or not. If it's not, you know where to go. If it is, then I do something special. So I had my one special case in there. So maybe I could have just instead of that, not worry about this I just yet, but do hi mom and get it up and working for hi mom. Once I got that working, again, that's the H and keep going and then put in that special case. But I would be going through this string a character at a time. In Java, it was what did I use to get a character at a time in Java? Charat. So I took the string dot charat and I had an index in here. Usually it was in a loop from one to length. How can I get a character at a time here? Well, this is the idea of where character arrays come into play. It makes it kind of nice. Is that how you laid it out and discussed it in your group before you moved on? So normally, when I didn't last year, I have a high school computer programming contest, and I give them 7 programs. It's a group of 3 students, and this is high school students, and they have one computer to work at. But when I hand them the contest, the first thing I do is say, you're not allowed to start typing for 20 minutes. And I can tell who the bad teams are because they have no idea what to do here and to start jotting down some code. How am I going to go through this? What's my thought process and so on, which is what I'm trying to train you to do. 162, you're going to be doing a ton of scratch paper. But I wanted to revisit that and talk about it a little bit more. My next question, if I said, I want you to know And right now we're going to take a look at today the string class. Okay, we're not doing character arrays. We're going to go to the string class. And in the string class, what type of functions are available to work with the string? Well, I know I have to use the hashtag include string. We've done that a couple of times up to this point. Not as much as we'd like to, but now we're really going to get into strings. The string class is C++. It's not C, okay? So I have this class called string written for me. Thanks, somebody. Thanks for doing that. It's a new data type. It's called string. One of the tricky things to remember is when I'm dealing with string, it's a lowercase s. In Java, it was a capital S, okay? It's not a primitive data type. It's a lowercase s, and I can do something as simple as cout, enter a name, get line, cin name, and it'll store the whole name. Now it's going to work more like a string like we had back in Java than a character array. Something that's nice with the string class is if name equals this string literal Bob. I even put yay. Why am I putting yay? Because I'm weird? Because I could not do this in Java. Somebody say it.
You couldn't do that in C string.
Couldn't do it in C string. I also couldn't do it in
Java.
Java. Thank you.
Equals, right?
Yeah, we had to do dot equals, or there was another one that we could use called dot compare to. That would return a negative or 0 or 1, and it would get into the whole idea of less than and greater than kind of idea. What can we use? Yeah, we can use the relational operators. And there's some stuff in the book as you're going through, and I don't need to spend a lot of time because as you go through the book, these things are like, oh, yes, I can do relational operators to compare strings like the equals. Great. I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it. We even mentioned the other day concatenating strings. What was the symbol I could use to concatenate strings? Melissa, answer for the class.
For addition.
The plus, right? I could use the plus. And the plus is something called an overloaded operator where I can add integers and doubles, I can add strings, I can add all kind of things together. So that's written somewhere as what's called an overloaded function. All right, all of a sudden you start to find a list of functions, and though one of our favorite is dot length, because we would like to always know the length of a string, especially if I'm going through and I'm looping it. Well, I'm going to pause the video right now because you're starting to understand the idea of all these pre-written functions and what arguments have to be supplied. And unlike math dot and character dot back in Java, we do the string names. But I'm going to pause the video right now because I want to go to Google and see where I can find a lot of good functions to go along with the C++ string class. So we're back, and as we just said, plus.com was a great place to go. So if you're ever doing something and you're working with a string and you say, I wonder if this is a function, one, you can type it in and try it, or two, you can go to one of those places and take a look at it. String tokenizing, something on page 600. And we were talking about this a little bit the other day. Anna was talking about delimiters, and a token is a way to break up a string, okay? And each of the up to a certain point becomes a token. Well, a common one is to have a delimiter of a space. So if I said, I went and voted, and I set my delimiter to be space, I could break this string up by separate tokens for when I get to a space. Some of you looked at that in the chapter 9 back in Java. Some of you, it's around again in C++. I made a reference to page 600. We're not going to get into it very much, but on page 600, it's one of those in the spotlight programs, and you can go through, and it does have conversation about tokens and delimiters and so forth. A little extra for experts if you want to check it out. Those of you that are done after 161, I'll be sad that you're gone. But for those in 162, tokens and delimiters are something that is around, and we can always reference and use if we need to for certain things. Okay, so the other day with character strings, we worked on the function that would convert a character string to an integer. And what was that? 4 letters. It was, I'm covering this up so nobody can write this down, not pay attention. What were the 4 letters to convert a character string? Because remember, we had a little trouble with this. Some people tried to turn it into a character instead of a character string. We ended up taking the whole character string. We converted it to an integer, and then we broke it apart to get each individual number. What was that?
A to I.
A to I. A to I. And the A represented the fact that it was a character string. During that lesson, we also talked about a string function that would convert a number. And what was that?
S to I.
S to I. All right. So when we did this A to I, it looked easy until we actually got into it and started using it. And again, it's one of those active learning things. When I actually try it and try to get it to work, I figure out a whole lot when I'm writing a program to do it. Well, what I want you to do today is, and I want you to make sure we get this done because it's going to carry over to the next class. You're going to use this again. I want you to input a number of students down here at the bottom. I want to input all as strings because again, we're practicing this conversions. So I'm going to input the number of students. I want to input the name and the 3 test scores for each student. Where would be a good place to put this? Because if I had 5 students, that's the number 5, a name and 3 scores, a name and 3 scores, a name and 3 scores, a name. Do I want to be typing that in every time? Say no. No. So what if I said, oh, let's put all of this input in a data file? Okay. I'm going to read everything from the data file as a string. As I read it in, I want to make sure my conversion S to I is actually working. S to I is actually working. As these things are coming in, I don't have to store them in an array, but what I want you to do is display the name and the average for each student. And then when all that's done, I want you to display the highest score and what student got that, the lowest score, what student got that, and finally display the overall average. So this first guy in my notes, I'm probably putting, oh, he's going to be inside the loop. As I'm reading things in, he's going to be inside the loop. Finding all of these, the highest score in the name, the lowest score in the name, and doing the stuff for the average is also going to be in the loop. And then when I come out of the loop, I'm going to display everything. Not too bad for a Tuesday. Not too bad for Tuesday. I am going to put you into pairs today, except one group will be 3, so that it's going to become a little more active. Questions? Sounds like an easy day. This way we can get done and Anna can go vote. All right. Questions, comments? Any questions about the next program?